Lukwago from office continues for a second day. Also coming up, the Kenyan rugby team are in town for the Elgon Cup. You're watching NTV at 1. Very warm welcome. I am Joel Kamadi. Now, calm has returned to Chiseka Market and business is as usual a day after police clashed with traders. The clashes were sparked off after Dr. Kiza Besigye drove by the market, attracting crowds. Several business people are counting losses, with food vendors affected most. The market is surrounded with heavy security deployment from both the police and the military.
Wakoseddwa nnyo abafiiriddwa ebintu byabwe abatasobodde kuggalawo baabibye. Abafumbi b'emmere eyo yonna yayonoonese bakedde jjiiwa. Naye nga kimanye nti baataddemu ssente zaabwe. Tubadde tusaba batugirewo security eyitiridde. Tetulaba kituyiisaaka poliisi mpitirivu bw'etyo. Lwaki bagituteekako? Bayina emmotoka basigale nga balawuna bulawuni. Kubaye twogeddeko ne DPC nze kennyini mukambwe muzibunze gwakambuwalira siyina wadde omu. Sobola wadde okukasuka ejjinja. Kati ate yayina n'emmundu. Lwaki ankambuwalira? Aŋŋambye mbu bayinza okubeera ku CPS mbu beesigye ne bamuwulira ng'ali wano. Ne mubuuza security bw'ayinza okutoloka ne mugayo kitegeeza security erimu ebitu ng'abatoloka kati. Wana abantu abamu oyinza n'obabuuza Besigye ng'amulaba mu bifaananyi ng'ayinza n'omusanga atambula nga tamumanyi.
Obuzibu bwe tusanga mu gavumenti singa wera Besigye ng'atambula ng'agenda emuleka agende tibitukwata kuba Besigye tiyabadde eno munda mu meeki era gye batukuba tiya gaasi. Naye yo poliisi etuyinamu esungwa n'abe wa Kiseka etutulugunya netukubanga tiya gaasi nga tulina na musango. Twafiiriddwa ssente zonna ffe ebintu tubigula kaasi ate bya buseere. Naye omuntu najja n'akuba emiggo n'akulesaawo n'emmereyo n'otambula n'ogenda.
Ono oba ye muduumizi Felix Kawezi ebintu byayogera si bye bisaanye okwogerwa abantu. Tosobola kuva omuntu omukulembeze n'ogamba ngenda kwabika nammwe emipiira. Zaabika emipiira. Ffe tetuyina mmundu, tetuyina kyuma kyonna kissi. Naye gwe omuntu omukulembeze okugamba nti ngenda kwabika nammwe emipiira kibi nnyo kibi ddala.
All right, now the tribunal hearing the allegations raised against Kampala Lord Mayor Arias Lukwago by KCCA councillors has continued for the second day, with more witnesses appearing and testifying before the court. However, the legal team representing the Lord Mayor has boycotted the proceedings. On day one, Lukwago's team walked out of the court protesting the terms of the proceedings and the absence of their client in court. Security at the court venue has been significantly reduced.
All this, the Lord Mayor in his own discourse refuses to call a meeting to approve this money. And management decides to go with committee report and collect money. So, the committee recommended management can go ahead and collect that money until the authority will come and approve the sum money. We said, okay, the committee passed the money, let's work in this way, waiting for the Lord Mayor to go to the meeting.
Okay, so you blame the Lord Mayor for this state of affairs?
Yes.
Moving on, humanitarian agency World Vision is urging private sector entities to weigh in their material support towards its causes as a way of raising better education and health services for for thousands of needy youngsters. These comments came at a banquet World Vision held here in Kampala and attended by a host of senior private and public sector officials.
World Vision Uganda recognizes that as an institution, we cannot achieve what we want to achieve without private partnerships. You as our service providers are corporate partners. If you provide a service to us with the right price at the right time, you are in a way contributing to eradication of poverty in the communities where we serve. People have challenged Africa to say that maybe we have received a lot of aid, not much is taking place.
They know where the poor are, they know how to deal with them on a one-to-one, which maybe would be difficult for the private sector. But the private sector has the money, the private sector can innovate, the private sector has better management skills, and bringing that on board and then getting government to facilitate all this happening, making sure the laws are right and the policies, we can move ahead as a nation.
Now, the world marked World Refugee Day on Thursday to focus on the lives of those forced to flee their homes, mainly under the threat of persecution, conflict, and violence. Yesterday, NTV met with a 31-year-old who is trying to make a new home here in Kampala.
Rachel's story starts in Mungwala, a village in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Her face is covered because the people who killed her father-in-law and kidnapped her husband could still be looking for her. She fled the country 7 years ago after two clans engaged in clashes that saw her family fall apart. Rachel came to Uganda with her daughter and two sisters. Life was not easy. She tried to make ends meet doing all kinds of things, but something always happened to take her back to zero.
I started selling also those things, moving around with necklaces, Life had become a little bit easier, trying my best to move around with other women, but it was not enough, It was not enough. It reached some time. I met those people of KCC, they took everything I had. That thing, I just went to buy them, then I did not even sell even one necklace. Then they took it away from me, asking me if I have card, which permits me to move around with those things. No cards.
She was forced to find an income selling her body. A friend who had taken her in would not pay all the bills while she sat around all day. She had failed to get any other kind of work. Prostitution was the last thing she thought she would ever do, but she did it anyway.
We could go, sometimes you go with guy, you say, okay, well, let us go. You go with him, then when you reach there, you find there are three. Then all, they use you.
New at the trade, she soon fell pregnant. She could not find the money to have an abortion, and so she kept the baby. He is now 4 years old. Sometimes she wonders what she will tell the boy when the questions start.
Even don't want to think about it, But sometimes if I see that child, I wonder, one day what should I tell him? Maybe he will ask me, who is my father, something like that. I don't know exactly which kind of answer will I give him.
Rachel is just one of thousands of urban refugees who stay in urban areas. Instead of the settlement camps, many refugees are taken too.
They don't have access to what other refugees in the settlements are getting. The urban refugee has to fend for himself.
They need as much help as they can get, but most people do not know that. Landlords are not friendly, and few people care to understand their plight. They do not understand that refugee life is not necessarily permanent.
I would want to see many of our agencies trying to engage the urban refugees into that line so that they become self-reliant. I'm seeing a situation where we have a refugee who is in position to change their lives and eventually change the lives of many of their dependents because they have dependents. I'm seeing, I want to say, an urban refugee who is in capacity to live in a decent place of accommodation, who who can afford basic necessaries for their families and themselves.
Most of the refugees that come into Uganda come from DRC, Somalia, Eritrea, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan and Kenya. The Refugee Law Project has received over 2,000 refugees in the last 6 months. They come with fears looking for hope, but they do not have it easy here. They do not easily find employment, healthcare, accommodation, and those that are given work are exploited. The language is also a problem for many. 7 years down the road, Rachel is coping. She has learned to speak the language. And she has found a neighborhood where she is not treated like a threat. She shares this one-roomed house with her 2 sisters and her son and daughter. Going back to the DRC is not an option on her table just now. Josephine Karunji Musisi, NTV.
Now to some disturbing news. A dead body of a 3-year-old baby suspected to have been a victim of human sacrifice has been recovered along the banks of River Malaba in Tororo district. Sharon Nabutono's body was discovered with her private parts missing, with 15,000 shillings placed on her decomposing remains. According to the area LC1 Vice Chairperson Musingo Everest, the deceased was staying with her grandmother Susan Nabutono and had been missing for 3 days. It is believed the deceased was kidnapped by her killers before being taken to the banks of River Malaba, where she was murdered.
It was a surprise of seeing such a menace of somebody's private part being cut off, and of which is just a younger girl who was not even 4 years old. It was something to do with 3.5 years. It was a surprise and a shocking what? A shocking story for us in Malaba.
Beno okukyusa omulambo bagenza okusanga nga omwana aliko nusu 15 za mirundi 3 gwe gumu kitundu nga ziri ku kifuba ky'omwana.
If it is a ritual murder, and we are going to get hand in hand with all the stakeholders, and I assure you we shall get the killers.
We'll now take a look at the money market report. Let's take a break, and TV at 1 continues shortly.
Play Lotto, the Uganda National Lottery that is changing lives. Guaranteed jackpot of 200 million Uganda shillings. Just dial *277#, reply and send 1 to buy a ticket. Please wait for the mobile money prompt and enter your PIN. Your ticket will be delivered via SMS. Watch NTV at 9:50 p.m. on Wednesday and Saturday night to find out how much you've won. Entries for the draw close at 7:30 p.m. You must be over 18 years to play. Play responsibly. Play Lotto, only on MTN, Uganda's biggest mobile money network.
Nange nchityamu oluzi naye nga mwebale nnyo ababoda mwebale kubanga mutulengera mpozi n'abanyakuzi n'abakubi b'obutayimbwa ani kyoyagala okumanya oluyimba akakabi ani akoze atya ani ali luddawa ani akoze kaliwa
sirigolola sikuba ngumi siri masannyalaze ojjanga n'okwatako nga bebe kulu ndi ku kaseti
tuli live wano kasavukanya mu muziki omulungi omukadde omupya
amma kati okuze ne mami wo takyayomba. I'm next on stage now. Ready?
Wow.
Bajjukira eminagiro gye beesuuliranga nenzijukira n'ebibindi bye banfuuyiranga. got no time to play no game.
Wanoka ku TV yo gomanyi mwe munamanya.
Welcome back. Now on the international scene, more than 1 million people are reported to have taken part in the protests in about 100 cities across Brazil, the latest in a wave of anti-government demonstrations.
The streets of central Rio de Janeiro and dozens of other cities echoed with percussion, grenades and swelled with tear gas last night as ranks of riot police scattered the biggest demonstrations Brazil has seen for more than 2 decades. A vast crowd estimated by authorities at 300,000 and more than 1 million by participants. Filled Rio streets, one other wave of a huge nationwide marches against corruption, police brutality, poor public services and excess spending on the World Cup. This morning, President Dilma Rousseff called an emergency meeting of her top cabinet members more than a week after the protests began. Rousseff, who has a standoffish governing style, has been almost entirely absent from the public eye, making only one statement earlier in the week that peaceful protests are part of the democratic process. At least one protester was killed in Sao Paulo state, where a car rammed into a crowd of demonstrators after the driver apparently became enraged about being unable to drive along a street. The protests have escalated into a wider call for an end to government corruption in the world's 7th largest economy, a call prompted by resentment over a $15 billion cost of hosting the Confederations Cup and the World Cup.
On the sports scene, the Kenya national rugby team have arrived in Kampala ahead of the Elgon Cup second leg tie against the Rugby Cranes to be played at the Chadondo Rugby grounds tomorrow. The Cranes beat Kenya 17-16 in Nairobi and hold a slender advantage over their rivals. However, Kenya coach Jerome Power Waters is confident ahead of the clash.
At this moment, we're fortunate we don't have
All right, we seem to be having a technical hitch. We do apologize, but the team is working on it. Now, Festino Moto Sprint event has been scheduled for the 30th of this month as Shafiq Semuju sets his sight on maximum after missing 2 competitions and the desire to keep atop the leaderboard. Federation of Motorsport Clubs will flag off their fundraising drive aimed at acquiring safety equipment for the competitors and the fans. All right, we're experiencing a technical hitch with our team there, but we shall be bringing you more of those sports stories in our subsequent bulletins. That brings the NTV at 1 newscast to a close. From all of the NTV team, have a great day.
NTV, turning on your world.